Good evening and welcome to my channel. Iran just achieved what defense analysts are calling the most devastating single strike against American military in decades by destroying $300 million THAAD radar system at Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan using precision missile that penetrated supposedly impenetrable defenses and obliterated the eyes of America's most advanced missile defense network, leaving entire Gulf region blind to incoming Iranian ballistic missiles because this radar was centerpiece of integrated air defense system protecting American forces, regional allies, and Israeli territory from Iranian missile attacks that are now completely undetectable until final seconds before impact when it's too late to intercept them. $300 million, that's not just equipment cost. That's irreplaceable strategic capability that took years to deploy and cannot be quickly replaced because only limited number of these radars exist globally, and manufacturing new units requires 18 to 24 months, meaning American forces and regional partners must operate without this critical defensive layer for next 2 years, minimum, creating vulnerability that Iran is already exploiting by launching sustained missile campaigns that overwhelmed defenses cannot adequately track or engage. And critically, satellite imagery confirmed total destruction, proving this wasn't near miss or repairable damage, but complete obliteration where radar structure is collapsed, sensitive electronics are destroyed beyond recovery, and facility is rendered permanently inoperable, requiring total replacement that Pentagon budget officials are now scrambling to fund, while Congress questions how Iran was able to target and destroy America's most sophisticated defensive system that was supposed to be protected by multiple layers of defenses specifically designed to prevent exactly this scenario. Trump is losing war, not slowly through attrition, rapidly through strategic defeats like THAAD destruction that fundamentally alter balance of power, giving Iran ability to conduct unrestricted missile attacks while American and allied forces watch helplessly, unable to detect threats in time to mount effective defense. Let me explain exactly what THAAD radar is and why its destruction represents catastrophic blow to American military posture throughout Middle East, because this isn't ordinary piece of equipment that can be replaced by pulling spare from warehouse. THAAD stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, and it represents pinnacle of American missile defense technology designed to detect and track ballistic missiles during terminal phase when weapons are descending toward targets, allowing defensive interceptors to engage threats before impact. System consists of two main components: radar that detects incoming missiles and interceptor missiles that destroy threats. ANTPY-2 radar that Iran destroyed is heart of entire system. This is X-band radar with range exceeding 1,000 kilometers, allowing detection of ballistic missiles launched from Iran, Syria, or other regional locations, while they're still hundreds of miles away, traveling through space before beginning terminal descent. Early detection provides critical time for defensive systems to calculate trajectories, assign interceptors, and engage threats with multiple shots if necessary. Without this radar, defensive network is reduced to relying on shorter-range systems like Patriot that detect missiles only when they're much closer, providing minutes instead of tens of minutes for defensive response. Financial cost is staggering. $300 million for single radar unit makes this one of most expensive pieces of military equipment in American arsenal. For comparison, F-35 stealth fighter costs approximately $100 million, meaning Iran just destroyed asset worth 3 F-35s. Replacing destroyed radar will require not just $300 million for equipment, but additional costs for transportation, installation, integration with existing defense networks, and training personnel to operate system. Total replacement cost could approach $400 to $500 million, but timeline is even more problematic than cost. These radars are manufactured by Raytheon in limited quantities because demand is relatively low and production is complex, requiring specialized components and extensive testing. Current production rate is approximately 2 to 3 units per year globally, meaning Jordan radar replacement competes with other worldwide THAAD deployments for scarce manufacturing capacity. Pentagon officials speaking to defense journalists indicated that replacing Jordan radar could take 18 to 24 months from order to operational deployment, creating 2-year gap in Gulf defensive coverage. Iran's successful targeting and destruction of this specific radar demonstrates sophisticated intelligence capabilities that American officials underestimated. Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan is not public facility with known coordinates that anyone can target. This is secured military installation with exact locations of defensive systems classified to prevent enemy targeting. But Iranian forces clearly possess detailed intelligence about precisely where THAAD radar was positioned, what defensive measures protected it, and how to penetrate those defenses with missile strike that achieved direct hit destroying target. Multiple possibilities explain how Iran obtained this intelligence. Russian satellite surveillance could have photographed installation providing coordinates and layout. Iranian human intelligence networks could have recruited sources with access to base providing detailed facility maps. Cyber penetration of American or Jordanian military networks could have stolen classified documents describing defensive positions, or combination of all three methods provided comprehensive targeting package that Iranian military planners used to conduct precision strike. Regardless of specific intelligence source, fact that Iran was able to identify, target, and destroy this critical facility represents major intelligence failure for American and allied forces who assumed their most valuable defensive assets were protected by operational security measures that clearly proved inadequate. Every THAAD radar, Patriot battery, command center, and critical facility throughout Middle East is now potentially vulnerable because Iran demonstrated ability to locate and strike targets that American forces believed were hidden. The strategic implications extend far beyond single radar destruction. Entire Gulf air defense architecture was designed as integrated network where THAAD radars provided long-range early warning feeding data to Patriot batteries, Israeli aero systems, and other defensive layers, creating comprehensive shield against Iranian missile attacks. Destroying Jordan THAAD radar creates hole in this network that cannot be easily filled because no other system has comparable range and tracking capability. American forces and regional allies must now rely on shorter-range radars that detect missiles only when they're closer to targets, providing less time for defensive response. This compressed timeline increases likelihood of successful Iranian strikes because defenders have fewer opportunities to engage threats and less margin for error if initial interceptors miss. Analysis from defense experts indicates that losing Jordan THAAD could reduce overall interception success rate by 15 to 25%, meaning attacks that previously would have been completely defeated now have significant probability of penetrating defenses. Jordan's willingness to continue hosting American military installations is now under severe scrutiny because hosting THAAD made Jordan target for Iranian attacks that Oman government would prefer to avoid. Before this war, Jordan maintained relatively cordial relations with Iran despite hosting American forces through careful diplomatic balancing. But Iranian willingness to strike Jordanian territory to destroy American assets demonstrates Tehran views Jordan as American proxy legitimate for targeting creating political crisis, where Jordanian government must decide whether continuing military cooperation with Washington is worth becoming frontline in American-Iranian conflict. If Jordan asks American forces to leave or restricts their operations, Pentagon loses critical Middle East staging ground that provides strategic depth and geographic positioning, allowing coverage of Iranian territory from Western approach. This would force reliance on more distant facilities, reducing defensive effectiveness and operational flexibility, creating exactly outcome that Iran seeks by imposing costs on regional partners hosting American forces. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and other Gulf states hosting American military installations are watching Jordan THAAD destruction closely and calculating their own vulnerability. Each of these nations hosts expensive American defensive systems, including additional THAAD batteries, Patriot systems, and radar installations that are now proven targetable by Iranian precision strikes. If American defenses cannot protect themselves from Iranian attacks, how can they protect host nations? This creates confidence crisis where regional partners question value of American military presence that appears to attract Iranian retaliation without providing reliable protection. UAE has already experienced Iranian drone attack on Dubai airport. Kuwait suffered destruction of American runway. Qatar faces constant missile threats against Al Udeid airbase. Each new Iranian success against American military targets reinforces perception that hosting U.S. forces creates vulnerability rather than security. The operational burden now shifts to already stretched Patriot missile systems that must compensate for THAAD radar loss by providing detection capabilities they were never designed to handle. Patriot is an excellent system for short to medium-range air defense, but lacks the long-range detection capability that THAAD radar provided. Asking Patriot to perform THAAD radar functions is like asking sports car to do semi-truck's job, fundamentally mismatched to mission requirements. American military has deployed dozens of Patriot batteries throughout Gulf region attempting to create overlapping defensive coverage. But these systems were distributed assuming THAAD would provide long-range early warning, allowing Patriots to focus on terminal interceptions. Without THAAD data feed, Patriot batteries must operate independently using their own shorter-range radars, creating gaps in coverage that Iranian missiles can exploit. Defense contractors are already responding to THAAD destruction by accelerating production schedules and lobbying Pentagon for emergency procurement funding. Raytheon issued statement expressing confidence in THAAD system capabilities while acknowledging that no defensive system is invulnerable to determined attack. Lockheed Martin, which manufactures THAAD interceptors, similarly emphasized system effectiveness while carefully avoiding discussing radar vulnerability. Congressional reaction has been sharp, with Armed Services Committee members demanding briefings about how Iran was able to destroy such valuable asset and what measures are being implemented to prevent similar attacks on remaining defensive systems. Some lawmakers are questioning entire Middle East military strategy, suggesting that if American forces cannot protect their own installations, perhaps deployments should be reconsidered entirely. This plays directly into broader political debate about Trump's Iran war, where critics argue that military campaign is failing to achieve objectives while creating vulnerabilities and costs that exceed any benefits. THAAD destruction provides concrete examples supporting this critique, showing that Iran retains capability to strike high-value American targets, despite week of sustained bombing that was supposed to destroy Iranian offensive capabilities. Trump's political vulnerability increases with each Iranian success because he personally staked credibility on quickly defeating Iranian resistance before a 4-week deadline expires. We are now 8 days into that timeline, with THAAD destruction representing major setback that undermines narrative of American military dominance. If Trump cannot protect $300 million defensive system, how can he claim to be winning war against adversary that continues successfully targeting American forces? Media coverage of THAAD destruction is focusing on dollar figure because $300 million is tangible cost that American public can understand, creating political pressure about whether war is worth financial and strategic expenses. But defense analysts emphasize that strategic cost exceeds financial loss because capability gap created by THAAD destruction cannot be measured simply in dollars spent on replacement. Iranian propaganda is exploiting THAAD destruction heavily through state media broadcasts, showing satellite imagery of destroyed facility, while claiming this proves American defensive technology is vulnerable to Iranian precision strikes. Tehran is messaging to regional audiences that American military presence provides no protection and in fact attracts Iranian attacks, making neutrality preferable to alliance with Washington. Israel is particularly concerned about THAAD radar loss because Israeli air defense systems, including Arrow and David's Sling, were integrated with American THAAD network to create comprehensive shield against Iranian missiles targeting Israeli territory. Jordan THAAD provided early warning about launches from Iranian territory, allowing Israeli defenses to prepare for incoming threats. Without this warning capability, Israeli systems have less time to respond, increasing vulnerability to Iranian strikes. Netanyahu government has requested emergency consultations with Pentagon about alternative arrangements to compensate for THAAD loss, including possibly deploying additional Israeli radar systems or repositioning remaining American THAAD batteries to provide coverage of Israeli approaches. But any redeployment of American defensive assets creates gaps elsewhere, requiring difficult choices about which facilities and populations receive protection. Technical analysis of destroyed radar reveals extent of damage that makes repair impossible. Satellite imagery shows radar structure collapsed with antenna array destroyed and support buildings burned, indicating fire following missile impact. ANTPY-2 radar antenna is extremely delicate array containing thousands of individual transmit-receive modules that must be precisely aligned to function correctly. Even minor damage to array structure degrades performance significantly. Complete collapse, like Jordan facility experienced, means total loss requiring full replacement. Iranian missile that achieved this destruction was likely THAAD-2 or similar advanced weapon with precision guidance, allowing terminal maneuvering to hit exact aim point. Less sophisticated ballistic missiles might have landed near radar, but achieving direct hit on specific structure requires terminal guidance using either GPS coordinates or possibly electro-optical seeker that identifies target visually during final approach. Iran demonstrating possession and operational employment of such sophisticated weapons represents major escalation of their offensive capabilities. American military is conducting investigation into how THAAD radar was destroyed, focusing on whether defensive systems failed to detect incoming Iranian missile, whether defenses were overwhelmed by saturation attack, or whether Iranian weapon employed countermeasures that defeated interception attempts. Each possibility has different implications for defensive improvements needed to prevent future losses. If radar's own defensive systems failed to detect incoming missile, this suggests Iranian weapons have stealth characteristics that American radar cannot adequately track, requiring investment in improved detection capabilities. If defenses were overwhelmed by multiple simultaneous threats, this indicates need for additional defensive batteries to provide redundant coverage. If Iranian countermeasures defeated interceptions, this requires development of new interceptor technologies resistant to jamming or deception. Regardless of specific failure mode, Jordan THAAD destruction proves that American defensive systems have vulnerabilities that Iran has learned to exploit, creating arms race dynamic where American defensive improvements drive Iranian offensive innovations in continuous cycle that consumes enormous resources without providing decisive advantage to either side. Economic impact extends beyond direct replacement costs to broader strategic investments required to address vulnerabilities exposed by THAAD loss. Pentagon will likely request supplemental appropriations for additional radar systems, improve defensive measures for existing installations, and research into countermeasures addressing Iranian capabilities demonstrated in successful attacks. These costs could total billions of dollars over next several years, straining defense budgets already stretched by ongoing operations. Insurance and risk assessment implications are significant for defense contractors operating facilities in Middle East. If $300 million radar can be destroyed in hostile fire, insurance companies will demand higher premiums for covering similar assets, creating additional costs that get passed to Pentagon through contract negotiations. Some contractors may refuse to deploy most valuable equipment to high-threat environments without government guarantees covering potential losses. Regional security architecture that United States built over past 2 decades in Gulf is now under fundamental question because THAAD destruction demonstrates that expensive American defensive systems cannot guarantee protection against determined Iranian attacks. Gulf Cooperation Council nations invested billions in American weapons purchases based on assumption that American military technology provided decisive advantage over Iranian capabilities. Jordan radar loss undermines this assumption, creating crisis of confidence about whether continued military cooperation with Washington serves their security interests. Alternative security arrangements are being quietly discussed among Gulf states, including potential normalization with Iran, increased defense cooperation with Russia or China, or development of independent defensive capabilities not dependent on American systems vulnerable to Iranian targeting. Each alternative creates strategic problems for Washington, where declining influence in Gulf would represent major geopolitical defeat. Subscribe right now because THAAD radar destruction represents potential turning point where American military dominance in Middle East is challenged by Iranian capabilities that Pentagon planners underestimated, and regional allies are reconsidering entire security architecture based on American military presence. When Pentagon announces replacement timeline for destroyed radar, when Jordan government makes decision about future American basing rights, when Iranian forces target next high-value American asset, when regional allies shift toward alternative security arrangements, this channel explains strategic implications as they develop. Before you go, answer critical question. Does THAAD radar destruction prove Trump is losing war to Iran, or is this setback that American forces can overcome through additional deployments? Comment A, B, or C. A. Trump losing. Iran destroying American high-value assets proves military campaign failing. Strategic defeat. B. Temporary setback. American forces adapt and overcome. War outcome unchanged by single radar loss. C. Stalemate. Neither side achieving decisive advantage. Both suffering losses without clear victory path. Drop your answer now. Day 8. Iran destroys $300 million THAAD radar. America's most powerful defensive shield now blind. Jordan facility obliterated. Gulf air defense crippled. 18 to 24-month replacement timeline. Regional allies questioning American protection. Trump losing war through strategic defeats. Congressional investigations demanded. Insurance costs skyrocketing. Alternative security arrangements explored. Iran proving capability to target and destroy America's most sophisticated systems. Pentagon scrambling response. No easy solutions. Subscribe now. I will see you in next update.